Have you ever gone to the supermarket and suddenly realized that almost everything around you can teach you English? The signs on the shelves, the names of food, the words on the packages, and even the conversations between people can become a simple English lesson. For a long time, I thought I needed a quiet room and a notebook to practice English. But one ordinary trip to the supermarket changed my mind. I discovered that learning English does not have to stop when you leave your desk. Sometimes, the best lessons are hidden inside the things we do every day. Today, let's go shopping together and see how a simple trip to the supermarket become an interesting English learning experience. It was a Saturday morning, and I needed to buy a few things for the week. I looked at my refrigerator and realized that it was almost empty. There were only a few vegetables, some eggs, and half a bottle of milk. I picked up my shopping bag, put on my shoes, and walked to the supermarket near my home. The weather was pleasant. The sun was shining, but the air was still cool. As I walked, I decided to make this shopping trip a little different. Instead of thinking only about what I needed to buy, I would try to describe everything in English. When I arrived at the supermarket, I took a shopping cart and walked inside. The first section was the fruit and vegetable section. There were apples, bananas, oranges, grapes, tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, onions, and many other vegetables. I looked around and quietly named each thing in English. These are apples. Those are bananas. These are fresh tomatoes. There are many different kinds of vegetables. The sentences were very simple, but that was the point. I didn't need difficult English. I wanted to practice the English I could actually use in daily life. I picked up a few apples and thought about the words I could use to describe them. They were red. They were round. They looked fresh. I put them into my shopping bag, continued walking. Next, I went to the dairy section. I needed some milk and yogurt. I looked at several different bottles and compared the prices. I quietly said, "This bottle is cheaper. This one is more expensive. This yogurt has less sugar." These simple sentences helped me practice English without feeling like I was studying. Then I noticed something interesting. When we learn vocabulary from a textbook, we sometimes forget it quickly because we don't use it. But when we learn a word while looking at a real object, it becomes easier to remember. For example, when I see a bottle of milk, I immediately think of the word milk. When I see bread, I think of bread. When I see a shopping cart, I remember shopping cart. The words become connected to real experiences. That makes learning much more natural. After choosing the milk and yogurt, I walked toward the meat section. There were chicken, beef, fish, and other kinds of food. I didn't know all the English words, so I didn't try to memorize everything. Instead, I focused on a few useful words. Chicken, beef, fish, fresh, frozen. These words are simple, but they are useful. And useful vocabulary is the vocabulary I want to remember. While I was choosing some chicken, I heard two people talking nearby. They were discussing what to cook for dinner. One person said they wanted to make soup. The other person wanted to make fried chicken. I smiled because it reminded me that English is everywhere. We don't always need to sit in an English class to hear natural conversations. Sometimes we can learn simply by listening to people around us. Of course, I didn't try to listen to their private conversation. I just noticed a few words and expressions. Then I continued shopping. After that, I went to the bread section. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. It was probably my favorite part of the supermarket. There were sandwiches, cakes, cookies, and different kinds of bread. I picked up a loaf of bread and looked at the package. There were several English words printed on it. I read them slowly. Sometimes, packaging can be a great way to learn. You can find words about ingredients, taste, weight, quantity, and expiration dates. You don't need to memorize everything. Just notice a few words each time you go shopping. Little by little, your vocabulary grows. After about 30 minutes, my shopping bag was getting heavy. I checked my list one more time. Bread, vegetables, chicken. Everything was there. I pushed my cart toward the checkout. While waiting in line, I looked at the people around me. Some were shopping with their families. Some were buying food for dinner. Some were in a hurry. Everyone had a different reason for being there. When it was my turn, the cashier smiled and asked if I had found everything I needed. I answered, "Yes, thank you." It was a very short conversation, but I liked it. Sometimes we think we need long conversations to practice English. Actually, short conversations are useful too. A simple "Good morning." A simple "How are you?" A simple "Thank you." A simple "Have a nice day." These small expressions help us become more comfortable speaking. After paying, I packed everything into my shopping bags. The cashier smiled and said, "Have a nice day." I smiled and replied, "You too." Then I walked home. The shopping bags were heavy, but my mind felt light. I had bought everything I needed, and without realizing it, I had practiced a lot of English. On the way home, I thought about how easy it can be to turn normal activities into learning opportunities. You don't need to wait until you have 2 free hours. You can learn while shopping. You can learn while cooking. You can learn while walking. You can learn while cleaning your room. You can even learn while waiting for the bus. The important thing is to pay attention. When you see something, try to name it in English. When you hear a sentence, listen carefully. When you don't know a word, write it down and look it up later. You don't need to learn 50 words in one day. Learn 5. Use those 5 words. Then learn 5 more tomorrow. This is how vocabulary becomes part of your life. When I arrived home, I put the food away and looked at my shopping list. I decided to turn the list into an English learning exercise. I wrote down a few sentences. I'd need to buy some milk. I am looking for fresh vegetables. These apples are cheaper than those apples. I need a loaf of bread. Where can I find the eggs? I would like to pay by card. These are not complicated sentences, but they are real sentences. They are sentences you might actually use. And that is why I believe everyday English is so powerful. You don't always need complicated vocabulary. You need English that helps you communicate. English that you can use at the supermarket, at a coffee shop, at work, while traveling, or when talking to a new friend. That evening, I put the shopping bags away and made myself a simple dinner. As I prepared the vegetables, I smiled. The supermarket had given me more than food. It had given me a small English lesson, and it reminded me of something important. Learning English is not about finding more time. It is often about using the time you already have. You don't have to change your entire schedule. You can simply add English to the activities you already do. If you go shopping tomorrow, try it. Look around and name 5 things in English. Then describe them. What color are they? How much do they cost? Are they fresh? Are they cheap or expensive? Do you like them? You can even practice a short conversation in your head. Excuse me, where can I find the bread? It's over there, next to the milk. Thank you. You're welcome. It may feel strange at first, but after some practice, it becomes natural. And most importantly, it makes English part of your everyday life. You don't need to study perfectly. You just need to keep using the language. Every word you learn is another small step. Every sentence you practice makes you more confident. Every conversation helps you become a better English speaker. So the next time you go to the supermarket, don't think of it as just another shopping trip. Look around. Listen. Read. Speak quietly to yourself. And turn an ordinary activity into an English lesson. You may be surprised by how much you can learn. Thank you for spending this shopping trip with me. I hope this story gave you some useful English and a new way to practice every day. Remember, your English classroom doesn't always have four walls. Sometimes it is a supermarket. Sometimes it is a coffee shop. Sometimes it is the street outside your home. And sometimes it is simply your own kitchen. Keep listening. Keep practicing. Keep using English in your everyday life. And remember, you don't need more time to learn English. You just need to make better use of the time you already have. I'll see you in the next English Learning Podcast. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your next shopping trip.